Good morning, friends. I hope you're having a good week, and thank you as always for joining us for our Bible reflection for this morning. May I, before we start, may I ask for some prayers, please? May I ask you to pray for me as I'm licensed to the parish of Great Bar on Sunday afternoon. Really value your prayers. I do pray for them. Pray for me that it will go well and God will be with us, as I'm sure He will. Do please also pray for the people of Wednesbury and Wood Green, as the wonderful Taiwo is licensed there on Saturday tomorrow. So do please pray, for Wednesbury and Wood Green, and pray for Great Bar, and pray God will continue His good work in that neck of the woods. But today we are in the first book of Samuel, chapter 13. Saul has just become king, and this is what happens next. So here are 1 Samuel 13. Saul was years old when he began to reign, and he reigned something and 2 years over Israel. Come back to that later. Saul chose 3,000 out of Israel. 2,000 were with Saul at Michmash and the hill country of Bethel, and 1,000 were with Jonathan in Gibeah of Benjamin. The rest of the people he sent home to their tents. Jonathan defeated the garrison of the Philistines that was at Geba, and the Philistines heard of it. And Saul blew the trumpet throughout all the land, saying, "Let the Hebrews hear." When all Israel heard that Saul had defeated the garrison of the Philistines, and also that Israel had become odious to the Philistines, the people were called out to join Saul at Gilgal. The Philistines mustered to fight with Israel 30,000 chariots and 6,000 horsemen, and troops like the sand on the seashore in multitude. They came up and encamped at Michmash to the east of Bethaven. When the Israelites saw that they were in distress, for the troops were hard pressed, the people hid themselves in caves and holes and in rocks and in tombs and in cisterns. Some Hebrews crossed the Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. Saul was still at Gilgal, and all the people following him trembling. He waited 7 days, the time appointed by Samuel, but Samuel did not come to Gilgal, and the people began to slip away from Saul. So Saul said, "Bring the burnt offering here to me, and the offerings of well-being." And he offered the burnt offering. And as soon as he had finished the burnt offering, Samuel arrived. And Saul went out to meet him and salute him. Samuel said, "What have you done?" Saul replied, "When I saw that the people were slipping away from me, and that you did not come within the days appointed, and the Philistines were mustering at Michmash, I said, 'Now the Philistines will come down upon me at Gilgal, and I have not entreated the favour of the Lord.' So I forced myself and offered the burnt offering." Samuel said to Saul, "You've done foolishly, and have not kept the commandment of the Lord your God, which He commanded you. The Lord would have established your kingdom over Israel forever, but now your kingdom will not continue. The Lord has sought out a man after His own heart, and the Lord has appointed him to be ruler over His people, because you've not kept what the Lord commanded you." And Samuel left and went on his way from Gilgal, the rest of the people following Saul to join the army. They went up from Gilgal towards Gibeah of Benjamin. Saul counted the people who were present with him, about 600 men. Saul, his son Jonathan, and the people that were present with them stayed at Gibeah of Benjamin, but the Philistines encamped at Michmash. And raiders came out of the camp of the Philistines in 3 companies. One company turned toward Ophrah, and the other the land of Shaul. Another company turned towards Beth Horon. Another company turned towards the mountain that looks down upon the valley of Zeboim towards the wilderness. Now there was no smith to be found throughout all the land of Israel, for the Philistines said, "The Hebrews must not make themselves swords or spears." So all the Israelites went down to the Philistines to sharpen their plowshare, mattocks, axes, and sickles. The charge was 2/3 of a shekel for the plowshares and for the mattocks, and 1/3 of a shekel for sharpening the axes and for setting the goads. So on the day of battle, neither a sword nor a spear was to be found in the possession of any of the people with Saul and Jonathan, but Saul and his Jonathan had them. Now a garrison of the Philistines had gone out of the pass of Michmash. And this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Okay, a few things about this. Firstly, it sounds a bit odd, the first verse, about how old he was when he started reigning, and how long he reigned for. It leaves a gap in my Bible. Some Bibles say he only reigned for 2 years. Other Bibles I've had say he reigned for 22 years. I think 22 years is more likely, if I'm honest with you, but the Hebrew is a little unclear on that one. So we're not quite sure whether he reigned for 2 years or 22 years at this point. But anyway, that's a small point. Now, the thing with Saul is it's hard to look at Saul without looking at because we all kind of know that it ends badly in the end. But I think you've got to see firstly from the previous chapter that Saul was most definitely called by God to this role. I think you have to say that. And early in the chapter, I think we can safely say, you might say, so far so good, considering he was a young chap. He starts off with this troop reallocation. It's not particularly clear what he's trying to do there. He has some troops to look after himself and some of his son Jonathan. You hear more about Jonathan later in the story. And it's not quite clear what that's about. But anyway, that's why he does that. And you also get Jonathan, who then goes out and attacks the Philistines kind of off his own bat, really. Jonathan comes across at this point just being a sort of a headstrong, impetuous kind of thing he's doing here. But what's quite interesting is that Saul kind of goes in with him and takes responsibility for his actions. So he doesn't hang Jonathan out to dry, but he goes with him and he supports him. So at this stage, you might say things are going okay as far as Saul is concerned. The only thing it does, though, of course, it winds up the Philistines no end. They're not very happy at all, and they come to attack. And the people of Israel find themselves absolutely terrified. So they go where they hide in sort of caves and rocks and all sorts of funny places, and they're frightened. So it's quite difficult to see at this stage. Saul's acting here. This act of Jonathan's kind of a bit impetuous. He's wound up the Philistines no end, and the people of Israel are scared. Anyway, Saul calls for Samuel, and this is when things start to go wrong. The people are they're hiding and they're scared out of their wits. And he calls for Samuel to come and do the burnt offering. And the rules are quite clear. He's supposed to wait for 7 days. But we're on the kind of the 7th day, and Samuel hasn't turned up yet. And Saul gets a bit concerned. He gets frightened that the people are going to people seem to be slipping off and that the people seem to be taking the law into their own hands here and going there. So he decides to do the burnt offering himself, something which he's clearly not supposed to do. And I think there's something really important here actually about leadership and about Saul. He clearly was, from the previous chapters, called by God. He was God's choice. And it started off okay. But even if you've been called by God, you've got to remain close to God. When the people of God are told when God speaks to Joshua in Joshua chapter 1, be bold and be strong. Yeah, be bold and be strong when you go into the promised land, but make sure you keep the law of the Lord with you. All along the line, okay, they're told to be courageous, they're told to have faith, but they're also told to keep the law of God. And what happens here is that Saul here takes responsibility for something which he wasn't supposed to do. He oversteps the mark big time, and he takes power that he's not supposed to have, and that's bad. And Samuel comes in at this point and rebukes him. As it happens, if he'd waited the full 7 days, Samuel would have arrived on time, but he did it on the 7th day, so he just jumped the gun too soon. But the point is, he's taken power that he shouldn't have had. He's overstepped into areas he shouldn't have overstepped in. He's done things he shouldn't have done. He's overstepped his power here. And power, you might say, gone to his head. And he's done something he shouldn't. So this is kind of the start of where things start to go wrong for Saul. And Samuel has this and Samuel then goes on to talk about God. God was going to make you the great one. Your line was going to go on forever. But instead, God's going to raise up somebody after his own heart. And you and I know that that's David, which will come later as well. So I think the big lesson from this is that, we must make sure that we keep close to God. And we may feel called to do something. We may feel called to a position. God may have put us into a position wherever it may be. But the important thing is we have to stay close to God throughout. It's not enough just to start well. We have to finish well too. I mean, one of the tragedies of the Bible is a guy called Solomon, who was David's son later. And Solomon started well, but he went off. He got distracted with time. And we need to make sure that we remember not just to start close to God, but to remain close to God as well. And this is the lesson from this, really. So say Saul started off all right. If they were going to have a king, he was God's choice of a king. But he overstepped the mark here and continues to do so later. He took the law into his own hands. He's got to remain not just, courageous as a leader, not just asserting the power he's got, but he's got to make sure that he remains within the law of God, doing things in God's will, doing things in God's way. And if we steer close to God, then we'll be fine. Friends, I hope that's helpful. God bless you. Have a lovely day. Thank you so much for watching this morning. Have a lovely weekend. As I say, please don't forget to pray for us. Pray for Wednesbury. Pray for Great Bar this weekend. And pray for me as we begin this new ministry here and as in both places. God bless you. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy your Wednesday. Enjoy your Friday. Enjoy your weekend. And God bless.